Good day, everyone. Good day. Yes, you are all welcome. I greet everyone who is part of our lesson today. Yes, it is 12 p.m. on a Monday. You know what time it is. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope everybody is good. And I also hope that everyone has had a very wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is a new day of a new week. It's going to be good. It's going to be amazing. Thank you so much once again for joining us in the lesson today. Let us quickly take the register. If you are there, can you quickly say hi in the chat so we can see who is with us today? Let's see who is with us today. Let's see who is present. Let us see who is absent by simply writing hi in the chat. Yes, I see a couple of hi in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Today's class is going to be different. It's going to be, I hope, it's going to be a bit different. Yeah, you know, just a little bit challenging, but it's all good. It's all good. We know that all is well. It shall all be well. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today's class, today's lesson will be about clauses. Yes, clauses. I know it looks like classes, but that is clauses. Okay, it's going to be an interesting lesson. Very, very interesting. So in this lesson, we will be doing the noun clause, the adjectival clause, as well as the adverbial clause. Have you heard about these things before? Okay, so here, okay, can someone remind us what is a noun, what is an adjective, and what is an adverb before we go on with the lesson? It is very important for us to remember what a noun is, what an adjective is, as well as what an adverb is, so that we can really have a very firm foundation to be able to learn and understand the noun clause, the adjectival clause, as well as the adverbial clause. So is there anyone who can raise a hand and remind us about these three things, what they are? Noun, adjective, and adverb. Anyone to raise a hand and remind us what a noun, adjective, or an adverb is? So you don't know these things, guys. There's nothing in the chat. There's no one raising a hand. Okay, so a noun is a naming word. Okay, a noun is a naming word, so it is important for you to remember that. An adjective, it is a descriptive word, or it is a word that we use to describe a noun and the pronoun. And an adverb is a word that which we use to describe verbs. Are we all okay with that? Do we all understand that? Please, if you need clarity on anything, if you need clarity on any of these three terms, please ask or raise your hand so that we may help you, because if you are really not understanding this so far, then it's going to be difficult for you for the rest of the lesson. Okay, so please, I do not want to leave anyone behind. I want us to move, to flow together. So please do not let me leave you behind. Do not let us leave you behind. Okay, All right, okay, so now we can move on. Now that we know what a noun, an adjective, and an adverb is, then we are ready for the lesson. Okay, so overview of this lesson, we will learn what is a clause in general terms, and then we will zone in into the noun clause, zone in into the adjectival clause, as well as zone in into the adverbial clause. So that's what today's lesson will be about. Stick around. All right, so introduction there. A phrase, okay, before we get too deep with that, there is a clause and there's also a phrase. So we need to know the difference between the two. Once you know the difference between the two, then we really are set so that we can go and yes, and learn about the noun and the adjectival and the adverbial clauses. So is there anyone who would like to read this for us? Anyone? Simply raise your hand quickly. Anyone who likes to read this for us? Or we have no Sipo?
Good day, sir.
Hi, Nosipo, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, and you, sir?
Good, good, good. Thank you so much for raising your hand.
Okay, sir. So, a phrase is a group of words that does not have a finite verb. The group of words in a phrase makes sense, but is clearly incomplete. E.g., the children are in the garden.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nosipo. Thank you. So from what Nosipo was reading, she was reading about what a phrase is, okay? So in this example, the phrase is the group of words I've underlined, okay? So in the garden is underlined here to show that it is a phrase, okay? So you realize that, okay, from what Nosipo read, she did say that a phrase is a group of words without a finite verb, okay? So let us see if that's true. So in the group of words that which I've underlined, we have in, which is a preposition, and it can also be an adverb of place. Then you also have the, which is an article, and garden, which is a noun. So you realize that here we do not have a verb. Okay, so that is what makes this a phrase. And you realize that if you read in the garden by itself, you realize that there are so many questions that which you might be asking yourself. Okay, what happens in the garden, who is in the garden, and all that. So you can see that although in the garden it makes sense, but we still need to know more. We still need to know more because this clearly is incomplete. Thank you so much for reading for us, Nosipo. So another person to read for us about the definition of a clause. Then after that, we should be ready to start our lesson, because at that point we would have laid the foundation, we would have laid enough groundwork. Oh, no Sipo again. Okay.
Okay. So a clause is a group of words that does not have a finite verb. The group of words in a clause are complete and make sense. E.g., the children are in the garden.
Okay, so you see that that is a complete sentence. You do not have to ask anything. We know that the children are in the garden, and we know what children are doing in the garden. You know, they're probably playing with ants, with the spiders. They are playing, you know, yes, they are rolling in the garden. They're picking flowers, whatever the case may be. So these are the differences of a phrase and a clause that which we need to know beforehand before we continue with the lesson. Are we all together with that? Remember, if you have a question, please do not hesitate to ask. Okay, knowledge is power by unknown. You know, this is the code we've been using for some time now. Okay, and remember that a clause is a group of words that does have a finite verb. Okay, a clause is a group of words that does have a finite verb. Okay, yes, so if you want to remember that, just remember Nosipo reading it. Okay, yes. Nosipo did read that. Okay, fine. Now we are ready to start with our lesson. The first one is the noun clause. Okay, so a noun clause cannot stand on its own. Okay, so I have a question for you. What do you call a clause that cannot stand on its own? What do you call a clause that cannot stand on its own? Let's hear it. You can raise your hand or you can type in the chat. What do you call a clause that cannot stand on its own? What do you call a clause that cannot stand on its own? Yes, Onkabetse, we call it a subordinate clause. That's correct. Another word for it is a dependent clause. Thank you, Cleo. That is also correct. Okay, so a noun clause, it is a dependent clause because as you're going to see in the next examples, you would realize that without another clause, without a main clause, then a noun clause will not be able to stand on its own. Okay, so you can really think of a noun clause as a chair. Okay, you can really think of a noun clause as a four-legged chair, but with only three legs. What's going to happen? It won't be able to stand on its own. It will fall over. Yes, and it will hurt everyone who is next to it. So it will not really help us with anything. It may instead just cause us pain. All right. Then a noun clause is a group of words that contains a finite verb, but this group of words can either be the subject or the object of a sentence. You do remember that subject and the object of a sentence? In your assessment, they were not there, but remember, it is very important for you to remember these. They are so important. Like I've already said that everything that we should learn here is important. So please, 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 do not take it lightly. You know, just think of yourself like a smartphone. Okay, you realize that even though you may be the most expensive smartphone, but what really can really help you is the apps that which you have. Okay, so think of yourself as the smartphone, and everything that which you learn here, think of it as apps. Okay, so today's lesson is one app, tomorrow's lesson will be another app, this lesson will be the other app, like that, like that, like that. Eventually you will have many apps, and whatever that which you want to do, you will be able to do it because you have an app for it. Okay, so I would like to encourage you to think of yourself like that, and you realize that everything that we should learn here, it is very important. There is nothing here that we should learn just to push time or because you are bored. No, you learn everything here because it is important for you to know and learn and understand. Okay, yes. Okay, I see Nosipo's hand is up. I don't know if she has a question or a comment or what.
I'm so sorry, sir. I forgot to put it down.
Okay, all right, okay. So yes, this is the noun clause. Remember, we said it's a group of words which has a finite verb, and it can either be the subject or an object of a sentence. All right. So a noun clause, it is a group of words where the nouns act as and can be the subject or the object of a sentence. Okay, so with a noun clause, it is a group of words where the nouns act as or they can be the subject or the object of a sentence. All right, so I hope you understand what that means. If you don't, you can raise your hand or ask in the chat. Thank you. All right, let's continue. So first example here is what she said yesterday was so profound. Okay, let's read it again. What she said yesterday was so profound. Okay, so from here, what I've underlined, what she said yesterday is our noun clause. Can someone tell me why this is our noun clause? You can try, don't worry, you can try. Remember, this is not a test, it's not an assessment, so I'm not gonna make you wrong, you're not gonna lose anything. Just try to see if you understand where we are going so far. So you can please raise your hand to tell us what makes what I've underlined to be our noun clause. So you see, I've underlined the clause. Okay, what I've underlined, what she said yesterday, it is our noun clause. So my question to you is, what makes this to be a noun clause? You can raise your hand to answer. Remember what I've said about a noun clause? I said that a noun clause, it is a group of words, okay, and those it is the group of words. It is okay. I said a noun clause is a group of words which have a finite verb, and those group of words, they can act as the subject or they can act as an object of a sentence. And we also said that a noun clause, it also acts as the noun. Okay, so noun clause, it also acts as a noun. That is why they call it a noun clause. It is a clause of a noun or a clause that represents a noun. Okay, so can someone tell us, someone, anyone, what do you think makes this underlined word a noun clause? What makes this a noun clause? Okay, I see we have no answer. Anyway, let me tell you. So what makes this a noun clause is because, okay, let's read it. What she said yesterday. Okay, remember remember that clause is the group of all these words. Okay, we cannot single out one word. We cannot single out she and say because she is a pronoun. No. Okay, a clause, remember the definition of a clause. We said that a clause is a group of words. Okay, so if it is a group of words, if you remove one thing, if if then you take out something, it is no longer a group, or it is an incomplete group. Okay, yes, so remember, since we say a clause is a group of words, then all those words, they should really go together. Okay, yes, I mean, just think of it like a band. Okay, okay, fine. Let me make this example. I don't know if you know this girls group, they called it Fifth Harmony. So yes, Fifth Harmony, it was 5 of them, it was 5 girls. Okay, yeah, I know their names, I know you know their names. So then what happens is that when one of them came out of the group, then that group became to be incomplete. That soon after that, the group just disbanded. Each and every one of them now, they sing. Each and every one of them now, they have solo careers. Yes, so that is an example that which I want to give. Okay, so please, if you want to if you want to give us an answer, like I did say, I didn't say write in the chat, I said raise your hand, because this is very difficult to explain with a text. Okay, and then it's going to take you time. By the time that you are done answering, I would have passed this section, I would be on to the next section. So please, if you want to answer the question, especially for this lesson, please raise your hand and I will give you a chance to speak. Okay, do not be scared of anyone. No one will laugh at you, no one sees you. We do not know where you are right now and what you are doing, and even if it happens that somebody laughs at you, it's okay, it's fine, because you do not hear them laugh at you, then it is not a problem. All right, okay. So as I was saying, what she said yesterday, it is our noun phrase. Why? Remember from the definition, I said that a noun phrase can act as a noun. So you realize that what she said yesterday, it acts as a noun. Why? Because, okay, fine. Let us say what she said yesterday was a speech. Okay, so if what she said yesterday was a speech, instead of saying what she said yesterday, let us write the word speech instead. Okay, let me do this. Okay, so remember I said what she said yesterday, it is our noun clause. Why? Because it acts as a speech. Okay, so It was so if we take what she said yesterday, okay, and then substitute it with the word speech, then our sentence will be something like this. It will be the speech was so profound. Do you see that now? So now you start to realize that. So now we are starting to realize that by so now we're starting to realize that what she said yesterday, it can be represented by the speech, which is a noun. Therefore, this is our noun clause because it acts as a noun. Okay. Yes. So that is what makes that to be a noun clause. Do you all understand now? Okay, let me go to the next example. Okay, let me go to the okay, let me delete that so that we can still have space. Then we can go to the next example. Right. So the next example, she believes that everything happens for a reason. So I've underlined it because it is our noun clause. And what makes it our noun clause is the fact that, remember, we said that a noun clause, it stands for, okay, it can act as a noun. Okay, no, it can act as a subject or an object in our sentence, and it can also take a place of a noun. And another thing is that because since it is a clause, it has a finite verb somewhere. So here she believes that everything happens for a reason. So here our finite verb in this clause is happens. So the whole thing from that up until reason becomes our noun. Okay, why? She believes that everything happens for a reason. Okay, so that everything happens for a reason, it is a belief. Okay, it is a belief, it is a philosophy, and we know that many philosophies have their own names. Okay, so therefore let's say that the name of this philosophy, for argument's sake, we call it we, we call it happenism. Okay, so then what it will be? It will be she believes in happenism. What is happenism? Happenism, it is a philosophy that believes that everything happens for a reason. So what is that? What part of speech is a philosophy? It is a noun. You see now. So that is how you can really play with it, so that you can really explain to yourself and others that this really is our noun phrase. Okay, the last one for noun clause, we have, I wonder what is making her so unhappy. So in this one, you will realize that when you say, I wonder what is making her so unhappy, so what is making her so unhappy? Chances are that is a noun, okay? Maybe she's unhappy because she doesn't have something. She's unhappy because of her hair, okay? Hair is a noun. She's unhappy because of what else? Girls, come on, talk to me, or boys, talk to me. Okay, what is making her so unhappy? I mean, what could make girls unhappy? Okay, let's say hair, shoes, smartphone, a selfie, all those things. So you realize that all those things, okay, pimples, thank you, Nosipo, bad hair day. So you realize that all those things, what are they? They are nouns. So you realize that what I've underlined here, what is making her so unhappy, it is a noun. Because you realize that you can easily add any noun to replace this noun clause. Okay. Are we all together? Do you all understand a noun clause now? I know it's not something easy, but do we all understand it? If you do not, please raise your hand so that I can help you before we go to the adjectival clause. Is there any question on the noun clause before we go to adjectival clause? Someone, anyone, any question, any question? Okay, so No question on the noun clause. Now let us move on to adjectival clause. Right. Remember, the first thing that we should remember about this is that we should remember what an adjective is. Remember, we said an adjective, it is a word that describes a noun. Okay, so here with the adjectival clause, an adjectival clause does what an adjective does. Okay, and I will show you that in a minute. Okay, so an adjectival clause, it is also a dependent clause because it cannot stand on its own. Yes, remember, you can really think of it like this. Since an adjectival clause does the same thing as an adjective, then you realize that it cannot stand on its own, okay? For example, give me one adjective that I can use. Yes, so this is something important for you to remember, that since an adjectival clause does the same thing that an adjective does, then it happens that it cannot stand on its own. Okay, Onkaweti says beautiful. Yes, beautiful is an adjective, and yeah, so I cannot say beautiful, okay, because you will be wondering what is beautiful. What am I describing to be beautiful? Okay, because beautiful, it is a descriptive word, therefore it should describe something. But here you just say beautiful and you do not know what the word describes. So that is not enough. It cannot really stand on its own. Then okay, we come to an adjectival clause. Okay, adjectival clauses contain finite verbs, but okay, yes, they contain finite verbs, but they are dependent on the main clause in the sentence. Do we all know what is a main clause? Do we all know what is a main clause in a sentence? Remember, the main clause, it is a main clause in a sentence. The main clause, it can stand on its own, okay? So you can really think of the main clause as the leading character in a movie, okay? So you realize that even if other characters are not there, but as long as the main character is there, then the movie continues. Yes, you can think of it like that. So that is a main clause. It can stand on its own, and yeah. Okay, still on adjectival clauses. An adjectival clause describes a noun in a sentence. Aha, does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? An adjectival clause describes a noun in a sentence. Okay, so what makes that familiar? What makes it familiar is because an adjective also describes a noun in a sentence. Okay, so this time around we have an adjectival clause. Right. So the relative pronouns who, which, or that serve to show us an adjectival clause. Okay, there is an example there. If you have an example of an adjectival clause, how to use it in a sentence, you can raise your hand and I will give you a chance to speak after going through the first example. So in the example I gave here, I said the results of the test, which we wrote last week, will be out tomorrow. Let me read it again. The results of the test, which we wrote last week, will be out tomorrow. So what do you learn here? Here you learn that what I've underlined, which we wrote last week, it describes what? The results of the test. Okay, so which we wrote last week, it describes the results of the test. Therefore, it is our adjectival clause. Why? Because it describes the noun. What is the noun in this case? The noun in this case is the test. Okay, so we are talking about the results of the test. Okay, so therefore this adjectival clause, it serves to describe the noun, it serves to tell us more about the noun. But in this case, it is not a word which describes this, but it is a clause. Okay, it is a group of words which describe the noun. Remember what a clause is? We said that a clause is a group of words which have a finite verb. Okay, so let's see if an adjectival clause has a finite verb, which we wrote last week. Yes, there is the verb there, wrote. Okay, so therefore this is our adjectival clause since it describes a noun. Okay, and another way that which you can identify it is with the relative pronoun which. Okay, let's go on to a few other examples. So another way to put it, we can say an adjectival clause is a group of words which contain a finite verb that act as adjectives. Thank you so much. And they often begin with who, whom, which, or that. Okay, so I know that sounds like a very compound, complex sentence. Anyway, let me break it down for you. Let me break it down for you. An adjectival clause, it is a group of words which have a finite verb. Okay, 1. 2, an adjectival clause, it acts as an adjective. So it means that it acts as an adjective. It means that it describes a noun in a sentence. An adjectival clause, it begins with who, whom, which, or that. Okay, so that is what you need to know about an adjectival clause. So I have 2 more examples. You know I believe in examples. The learners who have smartphones in their pockets must switch them off. Okay, so you realize who have smartphones in their pockets. What is that? That is an adjectival clause. Why? Because it describes the learners. Okay, it describes the learners. Why? Because, okay, fine, let us say it is you now. It is a class of it is a class of 20 learners. You are a class of 20 learners. Okay, so I can't say the learners must switch their phones off. Why? Because chances are, even in the 20 of you, maybe 5 of you, you left your smartphones at home. Another 5 of you, you have borrowed your phones to your friends who attend other classes and they didn't bring it back. One of you probably dropped his or her phone on Friday, so the screen cracked and they have to take it for repairs. And the other 9, they have their smartphones in them and they are on loud. Okay, so I, as the teacher, I will say the learners who have smartphones in their pockets must switch them off. Okay, why? Because I know that those learners who have left their phones at home, it doesn't matter. Even if that phone is on, it won't distract the class. Okay, the learners who have borrowed their phones to their friends, also to them, it's okay. They cannot switch them off anyways because they are not having their phones on them. Okay, but then these learners who have the phones in their pockets, it is them who have to switch them off because their phones will really distract the class. It will distract the class or the lesson or the exam or the test or whatever the case that which will be happening. Okay, so the learners who have smartphones in their pockets must switch them off. Then who have smartphones in their pockets becomes our adjectival clause because it describes the learners I'm talking about. It describes the learners that which I am addressing. Okay, I'm not just addressing every learner, but I am addressing the learners who have smartphones in their pockets. So that becomes our adjectival clause. Okay, last example for adjectival clause. The girl that is speaking outside is the winner of the competition. Okay, so the girl who's speaking outside is the winner of the competition. The girl who's speaking outside is the winner of the competition. Okay, what does this mean? This means that, okay, remember, there are many girls in the school. Okay, yes. Therefore, what is happening here is that I am describing the girl I'm talking about. Okay, so what is different between this girl and all the other girls who are outside? The difference is that this girl I'm talking about is the one who is speaking outside. Okay, so let me read it again. The girl that is speaking outside is the winner of the competition. Okay, so the girl that is speaking outside is the winner of the competition. So this means that the girl, which girl? that is speaking outside. So that is speaking outside becomes our adjectival clause because it tells us more about the girl. Remember, girl is a noun. Even if we used her name here, let us say her name was Nosipo, for example, then okay, it will be Nosipo. Okay, Nosipo is the winner of the competition. Okay, so imagine then I am the one who says it to another teacher. Teacher X, Nosipo is the winner of the competition, and then teacher X doesn't know who Nosipo is, so teacher X will ask me, who is Nosipo? Then when I answer, what am I going to say? I'm going to say the girl that is speaking outside is the winner of the competition. Who am I talking about here? I'm talking about the girl who is Nosipo. What does she do? What describes her? What describes her is that is the fact that she is the girl that is speaking outside, and that is speaking outside here becomes our adjectival clause. Any question on the adjectival clause? Okay, so let us go on to the last section of our lesson, which is the adverbial clause. So an adverbial clause, like a noun clause and an adjectival clause, it is a dependent clause. It cannot stand on its own. Okay, so with the adverbial clause, adverbial clauses contain finite verbs, but they are dependent on the main clause in the sentence. Yes, we already know that. Let's continue. So adverbial clauses are introduced by words such as although, before, when, and because. Okay, right. Then an adverbial clause, they tell us more about the verb in a sentence. Wow, that sounds familiar. Doesn't that sound familiar? Remember I said, okay, they're asking me to go back to the slide, to the previous slide. Okay, in the previous slide, I was talking about how an adverbial clause contains a finite verb and that it is dependent on the main clause of a sentence. Okay, so that is the same as with a noun clause and an adjectival clause. Okay, since all of them are dependent clauses, then they depend on the main clause so that they can be able to have their meaning to really be out, to really be understood. Yes. Okay, so we are done with this. Let us go. Let's continue. So here we are talking about adverbial clauses. So I said that an adverbial clause, they are introduced by the words such as although, before, when, and because. Okay, so adverbial clauses, they tell us more about the verb in a sentence. So that sounds familiar. What also tells us more about the verb in a sentence? An adverb, yes. So an adverbial clause, it has the same function as an adverb. Okay, so do you see now why I said that it is important for us to learn what a noun, an adjective, and an adverb is before we come to learn about the noun clause, the adjectival clause, as well as the adverbial clause. You see? Yes. So can I have someone to read the example in red for us? Can you have a hand for someone to read the example for us? Anyone, anyone, anyone? Okay, let me read it. So, okay, the example says, because you didn't bring back the pen I brought you last week, I will not return your pencil either. Okay, so because here, okay, because you didn't bring back the pen I brought you last week. Okay, I will not return your pencil either. So here, okay, from because up until last week, that becomes our adverbial clause. Okay, yes, and in the next slide, you will learn why that is so. So remember, adverbial clauses, they act as adverbs, and they tell us more about how, when, why, or why the action takes place. Let me see that again. Adverbial clauses act as adverbs, and they tell us more about how the action takes place, when the action takes place, where the action takes place, as well as why the action takes place. Okay. So you would realize that when you see this how, when, where, and why. Okay, for how, we think of the adverbs of manner come to mind. For when, the adverbs of time come to mind. For where, the adverbs of place come to mind. And for why, the adverbs of reason also come to mind. Okay, so yeah. Example, I cut the papers. So if I said I cut the papers, chances are that you will be asking me how. Okay, chances are that you will be asking me how, and I can answer you and say by using a pair of scissors. So you realize that this sentence, I cut the papers using a pair of scissors, it answers the how question. Okay, it tells us how something was done. Okay, because remember, I can cut the papers in different ways. Okay, yes. Example 2, the singer had already left when we arrived at the concert. So you realize that this adverbial clause, it answers the question when. Okay, so if you say the singer had already left, I will want to know when. Okay, so but when you say the singer had already left when we arrived at the concert, then I'll know. I will not ask you when, because you have already answered me. Then number 3, we canceled the trip because we were worried about the weather. Okay, so that answers the question why. Remember, okay, just imagine if you and I, or all of us here as a class, we had a plan to go to a trip somewhere, okay? And then when the time comes to go, I tell you that we canceled the trip, okay? You will not just say, okay, you'll not just take it at face value, but you'll want to know why. Okay, then I can tell you because we were worried about the weather. So you see that this whole sentence, we canceled the trip because we were worried about the weather, it answers our why question. Because we were worried about the weather is our adverbial clause. Why? Because it tells us the reason why something happened. It tells us the reason why for the main clause. Yes. The last example, we went to another school 10 kilometers away from the college. So that tells us, that answers the where question. It tells us where something has happened. Okay, so yes, that is all. That is the end of our lesson. Let us quickly go through the summary. So what we learned today, we learned that a noun clause, it acts as a noun, and it can be the object it can be the subject or the object of a sentence. We've also learned that an adjectival clause acts as an adjective and it describes a noun in a sentence. We also learned that an adjectival clause tells us more about a verb in a sentence. Okay, so yes, that is the end of our lesson. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, this is the end. So thank you so much for joining me today. may you stay home, stay safe. Remember to wash your hands. And if you're going somewhere, please wear your mask and remember social distancing. So from all of us here at STEM Digital School, we love you. Goodbye. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let's meet again same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.